Yo, what's up guys? Cove here today, and today, as you can see, I'm going to be showing you how to install Windows 11 on your MacBook via Bootcamp. So first off, I just want to show you that this actually does work. This is not a VM. So this is my 2017 12-inch MacBook. This is still my daily driver, and I actually still do run macOS on this. However, there's a lot of reasons why you'd want to install Windows. I think the main one for a lot of people is, as their older Intel-based Macs, get out of date with macOS, and when Apple starts dropping support for that, you obviously don't want to use an out-of-date OS. However, there's still a lot of good machines out here, like this one, that, for basic modern-day tasks are fine. Obviously, upgrading to the M series of chips and ARM is going to be way faster, but for a lot of people, they may just not have the money, or in my case, I just don't really see a reason to upgrade because this thing just does what I want to do. So you could go out and get a new machine, which again, that's probably the best option. However, for a lot of people, you could still complete your daily tasks and stuff just by updating or upgrading to Windows. And that's because Windows has a tons of software support left, including Windows 10. You can still run Windows 10 with full software and updates and security for another year. In Windows 11, they haven't even announced a date for that yet. But just to prove that this actually is running on the Mac, this is my MacBook 10,1. However, this would also work on iMacs or whatever. Here's my specs. So I have the i5 7th gen and 8 gigs of memory. And because of that 7th gen CPU, my Mac would not normally be compatible with Windows 11, which is why I'm going to show you how to bypass it and how to put it on. And we also are running Bootcamp. So the requirements is that you're going to need, obviously, an Intel-based Mac. This is not a tutorial how to run this on M1 or whatever. You're going to have to find a different tutorial how to virtualize Windows for that. Also, you're going to need some sort of USB drive or USB hard drive, because we're going to have to install Windows 10 first, and then we're going to install Windows 11 as an upgrade, but we have to do some things you'll see in the actual tutorial. However, before you install it, you're probably wondering how it runs, and I just have to say, it runs okay. Obviously, depending on how fast your machine is out of the box, that is really going to determine what the performance will be like for you. But I can say on this 5-year-old, actually not 5, 7-year-old MacBook that has no active cooling, that Windows on this honestly runs pretty much fine. So I think for, if you're gaming or whatever, or you just want to use this to get more life out of your machine, I think it's totally worth installing Windows. So anyways guys, that's enough babbling on. Let's get on with the tutorial.
Alright guys, so we're going to get started with this tutorial today. So the first thing on your Mac desktop that you want to do is you just want to go to a web browser. So for me, I'm going to be using Chrome, but for you, you could use Safari, it doesn't really matter. Now we're going to have to download a couple of things. So first off, in Google or whatever, you just want to type in Windows 10 download, like so. Now you might be a little confused as to why we're downloading Windows, and you want to click on this one that says ISO file. I'll also have this linked in the description below. The reason why we're downloading Windows 10 though is because we're going to need Windows 10 in order to actually install Windows 11. So obviously on this page, you just want to go down here and click on the Windows 10 Multi-Edition ISO, click on confirm. It'll take a little bit of time to complete, and then just select your language. So I'm going to be English United States, however pick whatever's best for you, and then click on confirm. So after it validates your request, you're going to see these two links right here. You want to make sure you click on 64-bit download. And I forgot to mention this before, but you're going to need a 64-bit machine in order to run Windows 11. Again, if you only have a 32-bit, you could try for the Windows 10 and just run that. It is still valid up until 2025. And I'm not going to download this because I already have the ISO downloaded just for sake of time. However, after this, what you're going to do is you're going to open up a new tab, and you're going to type in Windows, if I can type right today, Windows 11 download, like that. And again, you'll find this link right here. It'll also be linked in the description. You want to click on that, and you'll see that there's all these options, and you want to go down to ISO image. So we're going to click on select download. We're going to pick the multi-edition ISO, click download now. It'll be very similar to when we just download the Windows 10 ISO. And then you just want to pick the language that you're going to use. I'm just going to do English United States again and click on confirm. And again, on this page, you'll only be left with probably one option, and that is going to be the 64-bit download right here. Again, I already have this downloaded for sake of time, but you would click on the 64-bit download. Then the last thing that we're going to need is Rufus. So you're going to click or go to new tab and type Rufus download like so. And again, this will be linked in the description. And I'm going to click on this link, and you're going to scroll all the way down until you see the downloads on this page. You're going to pick Rufus 4.5.exe. It might be a different number, but it shouldn't really matter. It'll all be the same. Now what you're going to do is you're going to close your web browser once you have it all installed. That can take a little bit of time because it is several gigabytes of data. If you go to your downloads now, you should find that you have 3 files. You have the rufus.exe file, you have the Windows 10 ISO, and you have the Windows 11 ISO. So this is where we're going to need a USB drive or a USB hard drive. So I'm going to be using this green Xbox spinning drive from Seagate, and it is USB. However, I understand that not everyone's going to have this, and you do not need this. This is over excessive. A little USB drive like this will work. I'm sure that most of you have one that you can spare. However, if you don't, they're a couple of dollars at Walmart, and you know, they're pretty useful for storing all your important documents and backing them up and stuff. I recommend one of these because it's faster, but obviously this is going to work just fine. So what you're going to do is you're going to plug in your hard drive like so, or your USB drive. So let me do that. Okay, and we're going to have to copy a couple of files to it, but first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go to the search bar and type in disk utility. And once we're on this page, you'll find that you'll see probably your USB drive or external hard drive. So we actually want to format this, and I should note that anything that's on these hard drives or these USB drives is going to be erased, so make sure that you do back it up to somewhere secure before doing this. You're going to go up to the View tab and you click on Show All Devices. So you'll see now it'll actually bring up the vendor, which is Seagate, for my USB hard drive, or it would be your USB drive. You want to click on Erase at the top, and you can call it whatever you want. So I'm just going to call it External HD. However, obviously change that to whatever you want, it doesn't matter. The format is super important though. Make sure you format it as exFAT. If it's formatted as anything else, then Windows will not be able to read the drive. So we're going to pick on exFAT, and then we're going to click on Erase. And you're just going to let it do its thing. It shouldn't take too long. For me, it's already done. And then what you want to do is you want to go back to your downloads, and you want to make sure you copy the Windows 11 and the Rufus .exe file. You just want to write, or just kind of bring up this menu, and you want to copy it. You don't want to drag the Windows 10 one onto the external. You only want the Windows 11 ISO. So then just go to your external hard drive and copy over those files just like so. It should not take that long. For me, it's almost done. However, I am going to skip through this. Okay, so once that's done, you'll see on your external hard drive or USB drive that you will have these 2 files copied. And after that, all you can do is just hit eject, because we're not going to need it for a little bit. For me, my Mac is kind of a pain, so sometimes it won't just eject when it's supposed to. However, I do know that this has been copied over, and yeah, so there it goes. It ejected, and you can just unplug that. So the next thing you want to do is, if you're using a MacBook, make sure that you have it plugged into power, because the next step is going to not only use a lot of power and energy, but we are going to actually be installing Windows 10 on our device. So you don't want to have your machine power off during that, because that can kind of corrupt things. And yeah, if you're using an iMac or whatever, obviously that doesn't apply to you. But either way, what you want to do now is you want to launch Bootcamp Assistant. So just go up to the search and search Bootcamp Assistant like so. And again, what you want to do is on this page, just click continue. It might think for a little bit. And the super nice thing about Bootcamp, actually I'll tell you in a second, because we have to go through this menu first. So the first thing is that you're probably going to have something here that says choose. Now for me, what you want to do is you want to, on the choose menu, pick your Windows 10 ISO. Don't pick your Windows 11 ISO, because you won't be able to install that out of the box. That's why we have to use this method that I'm showing you today. So you want to download, and actually not download, but just choose the Windows 10 ISO like so. For me, it already selected it. However, you might have to manually point it to where it is. And then this is the other part of Bootcamp. Because we're dual booting macOS and Windows, you need to select how much you're going to give Windows of your hard drive. Now, because I use this as my daily driver and I actually use macOS and it still is kind of up to date because it's only a year old, pretty much I'm not going to give it a lot of space. In fact, it'll only allow me to give 78 gigabytes. So I'm going to give it 64 gigabytes. However, for you might want to make it a lot more if you're gaming or whatever, or you're just using this as your main OS because it has more better up-to-date security. Obviously, get rid of a lot of stuff on your Mac and drag that slider a lot more over. Please note that after you install Windows 10 or 11 or whatever, you cannot resize that partition on your disk. So you cannot change the size of how much Windows has available to it unless you decide to reinstall Windows. So obviously this is kind of a big ask. You got to make sure you pick what you want exactly. However, for me, for this video, I'm just going to pick 64 gigs. However, for you, you might want to pick more. So then after that, it's going to download the Windows Support software, and this is what I really like about Bootcamp. So in the PC world, typically you have to go out and you have to find your drivers for things, and that is the thing that with Apple and Bootcamp you don't really have to do because it just does it all for you. So the Windows Support software is downloading specific drivers that will work with your Mac hardware. So your trackpad, for example, it would work without the driver, but with the driver on Windows, it'll feel a lot more like you were running it on macOS. Your graphics drivers, stuff like that. And for a lot of people, that probably doesn't mean anything. However, it is good. Now, just to say, this is going to take a little bit of time, and your system actually is going to, at the end of this, restart. But like I said, it'll take a lot of time, so I'm just going to skip through this. Okay guys, so after that process finishes, you're going to see that your system is going to restart probably into the Windows 10 installation. So it may be a little hard to see on camera because typically with these MacBooks and stuff, especially MacBooks, but also iMacs, Apple makes such good displays that the installer is really tiny. So it may be a little hard to see. However, you're going to pick your language and everything, and then you're just going to click next. And then the next thing that's probably going to ask you, let me see if I can get a better zoom here. That's a little better. It's probably going to ask you if you have a product key. Now, we are going to talk about licensing at the end of this video because I do think it is important that if you really do plan on using Windows, that you do actually license it correctly. However, for everyone, especially if you're just testing, like Windows on your Mac, I guess I would just click I don't have a product key. That's perfectly legitimate. And at this point, you're also going to see a bunch of options talking about, which version of the OS do you want to install. So you're going to see quite a few options here. And really, none of these matter except for Windows 10 Home. You could go with something like Windows 10 Pro. However, obviously, you're going to have to pay more for Windows 10 Pro if you choose to license it. So Windows 10 Home is fine, I think, for most people, since you're probably not going to be using any of the Pro features. And then obviously you just want to click accept to agreement and license terms. And now it's going to, install Windows. And yeah, it's gonna just kind of do its thing. It shouldn't take that long. If you have an SSD, which most modern Macs have, then you're gonna be pretty golden. If you're using a hard drive or something like that, it's gonna go a lot slower. However, it doesn't really matter. You'll get there in the end. So I'm going to time-lapse to this right now. Okay, so once that's done, you will be brought to the Windows 10 setup. So obviously, you want to go through this and just kind of, pick the settings how you want them set. I mean, obviously it is your computer. However, I'm just going to go through a basic one. So United States, obviously, yes. US keyboard layout, I'm just going to skip this. Again, this is stuff that if you did want a second keyboard layout, obviously go ahead and do it. This is the only step that you might be a little confused about. You might be like, well, maybe I should connect to the internet. Well, actually, because we don't have our drivers yet, we're not going to, so we're just going to click I don't have internet. And it'll probably prompt you to connect. You're just going to click on no. Again, we will connect to the internet later. However, we cannot do that right now. So then obviously pick the user that you want. So I'm just going to do my name. However, obviously that would be whatever you want it to be. And then you can pick a password. So I'm going to pick a password. And then you got to confirm that password. Again, this is stuff that you guys are probably familiar with. And you have to pick your security questions. Okay guys, so after entering those security questions, which it may or may not ask you to enter actually, you can then have this privacy settings thing. Now I'm just going to turn all these off because I don't really like them. However, obviously this is kind of up to you what you want to do. So yeah, I'm just going to click accept on that. and then you're going to probably get that little prompt for Cortana. If you don't know what Cortana is, it is kind of like Siri. However, I don't think it's personally as good, and I don't really want it, so I'm just going to click Not Now. However, if you did want it, you could accept it. And then it's going to bring you to your Windows 10 desktop. Now, once we get to the Windows 10 desktop, before we install Windows 11, we actually have to install the Bootcamp drivers. So for that, I will show you what to do. Okay guys, so now, congratulations, you've installed Windows 10. Well, kind of. There's one important step. So obviously, as you can see, we still cannot really connect to the internet and stuff like that. Also, we don't have Windows 11 installed. So hopefully, if you got lucky, you will have this little window I have here that says Bootcamp. However, for some of you, should look like this. It should have like a little next button and everything. However, if yours is glitched like mine, you want to close out of it, and it'll say yes. And what you want to do is you want to go down to your File Explorer, which is kind of slow since we don't have any drivers for our SSD, and you want to go to this PC, and you want to click on OS X Reserved, and you just want to double click that, and you want to click on Bootcamp, and then you just want to double click on Setup, and you just want to click on Yes there, and then this is what you should have received. So obviously it's the Welcome to Bootcamp installer, so you just want to click Next, you want to click I accept, and you're just going to let it install. It could take a little bit of time to do that. However, it shouldn't take, probably less than 10 minutes depending on your speed, but I'm just going to let this finish. Okay, so once that's done, you just want to click on Restart. So just click Finish. Okay, so now we need to install Windows 11. So what you want to do is you just want to obviously log in to your PC, because it technically is a PC now because it runs Windows. Okay guys, now we are on our Windows 10 desktop. So now we need to get started in upgrading to Windows 11. So this is when you want to grab your USB drive or your external hard drive, and you want to plug it back into your system. So let me do that now. And this is the one that we copied those files over to earlier. So it might not show up right away, but you just want to go down to your File Explorer, and there it is. And then you just want to click on it, and you want to copy both of these over. So I'm just going to drag them to the desktop, and we're not going to need them much longer. However, we actually are going to need to keep the USB drive or the external hard drive attached, because we are going to still need that to install Windows 11. So you'll see what I mean in a second. However, we're going to be making a bootable USB drive with Windows 11 and using it to upgrade that way. And using the tool Rufus, we'll be able to strip the hardware requirements out so we can actually install Windows 11 on our system. I know it's a lot of steps, but it is worth it for the software updates and for gaming and stuff. However, again, I should note that Windows 10 is still valid all the way up until 2025. So at the time of recording, it has about a year left in its lifespan, so it's not completely wasteful. So again, if you don't want to do this process, you can just stay on Windows 10. Okay, so once those are copied over, you just want to double click on Rufus, and you'll have to click yes to the security prompt, and it'll ask if you want to check for updates online. We're going to click no. Also, make sure that you do not update, or not update, but like don't select a Wi-Fi network yet, because that may kind of ruin the thing that we're going to be using with Rufus to make Windows 11 compatible with our device. So we're just not going to do that. So you want to first off pick your device. Now if you're using a USB drive, this won't be a problem, but for me and probably a lot of you that are using external USB hard drives, you may have to hold Option F on your keyboard. So let me just show you what that means. So there's Option and F. If you click that, then maybe if you're lucky like me, you'll see that your external hard drive shows up. So then you just want to select your ISO file. So let me go down to downloads, or not downloads, actually it'd be desktop, and there's our Windows 11 ISO. So now you just want to click on start, and the main one is just make sure that this remove requirement for 4 gigs of RAM, secure boot, and TPM 2.0 is on, because that is the things that are preventing us from normally just installing Windows 11 on our device. And then obviously you can pick whether you want a Microsoft account removed or not. I don't want to sign up with one of those, so I'm going to remove it. And then you just want to click OK and OK. And then we're just going to let this process take over, and it'll take a little bit of time to make the bootable USB. Okay, so once it's done, you'll see that it'll say ready at the bottom here, and all you have to do is just click close. Now remember, not being connected to the internet, what you want to do now to upgrade to Windows 11 is click on the File Explorer down here, or you could also access it, I guess, any other way. And you'll see that if you go to this PC now, you'll see that your USB drive or external hard drive has a new name, which is a bunch of numbers and stuff. You just want to click on that, and you just want to double click on the setup. Now again, this is a modified version of Windows 11, which will bypass all the requirements that allow us to install it on our Mac. So now it'll say change how setup downloads updates. You just want to click on not right now. Now you might be a little confused as why would we not want to download and update drivers? Well, that's just because we're not connected to the internet, and we don't really, it's just not going to work because of that. So we're just going to click on next without that, and it's going to check our PC. Now normally this is the part where we get stuck on, but again it just kind of goes through it, and you're just going to click on accept right there, and it's going to say make sure you're ready to install. Now it's checking to see if our PC has enough space, and it should have enough space because we haven't done anything. And you'll see this right here. The default options are fine. In fact, this is what I would recommend. So it's going to install Windows 11 Home or Pro if you did select that, and it'll keep personal files and apps, and you just want to click on install. And then now it's going to install Windows 11. So just give it several, maybe not several hours, but at least several minutes. It can take a couple hours though if you have a slow computer. So I'll be back when this is done. And guys, once it's done, there you have it. There is a full install of Windows 11 on your Mac. Now, we will talk about the performance in a second. However, the first time that you do log in on Windows 11, you're going to get this little thing saying it's ready for you. And then also we do have to connect to the Wi-Fi, because obviously if we don't connect to Wi-Fi, then this is kind of pointless. Also, we are going to run a couple of updates on this machine just to show you how to update it, because again, a lot of people I think would be doing this just based on the fact that it does get more security than probably their Mac would normally support in macOS. So I'll come back to you though when this is done. Alright, so the first thing you want to do on the desktop is obviously connect to Wi-Fi. So again, you just click on this little arrow and then just choose the one that you want, and I'm just going to connect real quick. Okay, so, and then also you can delete these little files. We don't actually need them anymore because we already have Windows 11. So there you go, guys. That is how you pretty much install Windows 11 on your Mac. So the performance is actually pretty good. So what we will do though is that you will find, if you type in Apple software update, you will get this little drivers thing. And this is what you're going to be using to update all of the drivers on your system. So I probably will, it'll probably find a couple of updates to install. So this will be stuff like, you know, like I said, your graphics drivers, and you just want to check back every, you know, a couple once in a while. And as you can see, there's a Wi-Fi update and a Bootcamp update. So obviously, and it'll tell you what it's doing. Now I'm not going to install these now, however, you obviously do want to do those. Another thing that is important is Windows Update. So let me just type that in, and this is how you update the system. So you'll just type it in here and you'll find check for updates, and once that's open, it'll take a bit. However, there it will be. And if it currently says that there's no updates available, but if there was, you would want to install them.
And here you have it, guys. Windows 11 fully installed on our MacBook, and this is the legit thing. You have it fully installed. Now we are going to go over a couple of things. So the first thing I think that we should talk about is probably how you boot back into macOS, because again, this is Bootcamp. So you might notice at the bottom here that one of the common ways that you can boot into it is by clicking this little Bootcamp icon and restarting into macOS. However, you'll notice on Windows 11 that this actually does not work. It'll say could not locate macOS boot volume. So what you want to do instead is you want to restart the machine. So go to this and power off. And then while doing that, you want to hold the Option key. So you're going to give it a second to reboot. Okay, and then make sure you keep on holding the Option key. And when the machine boots back up, instead of going into Windows or whatever, it will go into this menu right here. And what you want to do is you just want to click on macOS. Now, obviously, if you wanted to boot into Windows, you could do that by just changing the arrow keys, so like that. However, because we want to boot back into macOS, just click the enter, which is this one right here. Actually, it's return, and you're all up and running again.
So one last thing we're going to go over is changing your default startup disk. Now you might be a little confused with what I'm talking about. So pretty much what I'm talking about is that when you turn on the computer, just by clicking the power, which OS do you want to boot up into? Do you want to boot up into macOS like it always did, or do you want to automatically boot back into Windows? So I'm going to show you how to change that now. So what you want to do is you just want to get back onto macOS. So again, you might want to use the option key method I did, where you just, when you hold power on the machine, just hold option and you should be able to boot back into macOS just fine. And what you want to do then is just go to these little search icon and type in start up disk like so. It'll automatically populate and your settings will open up like so. Okay, so on this screen you'll see that I have two options. I have Macintosh HD, which is my macOS install, and then I have Bootcamp. So for a lot of you guys it might be blank, but if I just click on Bootcamp here and then I use my Apple Watch, or I authenticate with my password, you'll see that it'll automatically switch over. So now if I restart, every time I power off the machine and power back on, it'll automatically boot back into Windows 11. If I want to boot back into macOS, I'll have to hold the option key like I just showed you previously, and then I can get back into macOS. However, if I keep it on the Macintosh HD like so, what's going to happen is that it'll automatically always boot back into macOS, and then if I want to boot back into Windows, I'll have to hold the option key and then select Windows from that little menu. So again, pretty much whatever your main OS is, that's probably the one that you most likely want to boot into. So if you're kind of going to use Windows for your main OS because it has better software support or whatever, then obviously it makes sense to select the Windows part. But obviously if you're just using for gaming or just, you know, light usage or whatever, and you're still using macOS, you obviously want to keep it back on this one. However, it's personal preference. And for anyone wondering, if you don't want to have Windows installed on your Mac anymore, just go back to macOS, type in Bootcamp Assistant, open that, you'll see this menu, click on continue, and you can just click on restore like so. I'm not going to do that because I want to keep it installed, but once you do is just click restore, it'll just kind of do its thing, come back a couple minutes later, and it'll be all done. And then that storage will be reclaimed back for macOS. And that's all I have for you guys today, so thank you so much for watching this video. If it did help you out, please give it a subscribe and a like. And yeah guys, enjoy Windows on your Mac, have fun, see ya.